So here is what we do calculate GST on and what we don't calculate GST on. So we calculate GST on cash sales and rent received. Now we're calculating GST on rent because it is commercial rent. Domestic rent, like you might pay, doesn't have a GST on it, but commercial rent does. We don't calculate GST on any amounts that we have received from our debtors. This is because when we originally record the sale, we're recording that sale in the sales journal. And at the time that we write the invoice is the time that we charge or calculate the GST. So the GST is already recorded in the sales journal. And we don't record GST on the amount received from debtors in the cash receipts journal, because otherwise we would be calculating GST twice and our GST amounts would be incorrect, which means that the information we send to Inland Revenue when we do our GST returns will be incorrect, and we might end up paying more than what we actually need to. And we also don't calculate GST on financial transactions, which are mainly transactions that you'll get from your bank, for example, interest received and things like that. So when we look back at this, when it says if any, or if GST is applicable, what it means is we calculate GST on cash sales, we calculate GST on rent, but we don't calculate GST on debtors, and we don't calculate GST on interest. Now, if you would like to make it easier on yourselves and to remember what you do and don't calculate GST on, you can put a tick and a cross like what I have here above the titles of these columns to help make it easier. So now let's have a look at what a cash receipt journal for B&C looks like. On page 96, you will find a cash receipts journal that has been completed. Here you can see the date column that has the dates, transaction that lists what type of transaction it was, folio that shows AP, automatic payment, CRS for the cash register summary, FPOS, receipt number for direct credit. And you'll notice that for interest received, it doesn't have a folio, so you can just leave that blank. Here is the total column. It has the total amount that came into the bank account. And then depending on whether GST is calculated or not, cash sales and rent, depends on whether you calculate your GST. So here, Pete's Printing is an automatic payment for rent that we receive, total of $200. Now, because it's rent, which has a tick, we calculate GST. So we do a GST calculation to find out the GST amount of the GST inclusive total. If you remember, that calculation is 200 times 3 divided by 23. You write in the amount here, and then you take this away from 200, which will give you $173.91 left over. Because we know that Pete's Printing is a payment for rent, we write that amount into the rent analysis column. Same for cash sales. We're recording that it's a cash sale. There's our total. We have to record GST, so we do the calculation. We subtract the GST from the total. We write the amount in the column. For when we don't have a GST calculation, for example, from our debtors, We don't need to do any calculation. We just write the total, write 0 in the GST, and then we just take this amount and we write it in our debtors amount. Just under the completed example on page 96 is an explanation of what the columns are for. Date column records the date deposited. Transaction records what the transaction was or who it was from. Folio records the source document or method of receipt. Total column records the actual amount deposited. GST records GST. And the analysis columns show what the money was received for and how much is left after any GST is deducted. So before I move on to showing how to complete a cash receipts journal, I just want to talk about pages 97 through to pages 99. So pages 97 through to 99 show each type of transaction in step-by-step detail. For example, if you have a look at page 97 at the top, you'll see that it says the first transaction for the month is an automatic payment by Pete's Printing for rent. We go back to our journal. You can see here is the first transaction. So this page is telling us step by step how to work it out and how to record it onto the journal. These pages will show you step-by-step instructions on how to record each and every different transaction that you see on this completed transaction journal. Now, I must make a mention of the difference between, just increase the size here, on the difference between these two here, cash sales and cash sale. Cash sales has an S on the end, meaning it is plural. There is more than one. It comes from your cash register summary. Now remember what a cash register summary is. There's a total of all of the transactions that have gone through the cash till during the day. So this is more than one sale. So it's recorded as a cash sales. This one here for FPOS. FPOS is one single transaction. So it doesn't have an S on the end of sales. It's just one transaction. Therefore, it is one cash sale. That's a big difference because if you get this incorrect in an assessment, you will be marked down for including an S when it should be a sale and vice versa. So just remember, CRS equals many sales. So it is therefore the plural version of cash sale, cash sales. FPOS is one transaction, so it is just one cash sale. So as I mentioned, the following pages explain in step-by-step detail how to complete each and every different transaction you see on that cash receipts journal. So if at any time that you get stuck, you can come back to this video to re-watch it, stop, pause, rewind, however you want to work, or you can look through the book and try and follow these step-by-step instructions. So now I'm going to go step by step through how to complete our cash receipts journal. So you have an exercise for this in your books on page 101. Okay, here is the month that you are to use. And here is a list of all the transactions that you need to write onto the cash receipts journal. Now, in order to complete this exercise, you can go to the Moodle page to download the Excel workbook. Here, under week 8, resources for the topic, week 8 cash receipts journal, scroll down, and there is the blank Excel template. Or if you have a printer at home, you can download this PDF and you can print it off and you can handwrite it. And remember, here are the answers for it as well. So if you do get stuck, you can have a look at the answer to see what it was and try and work your way backwards to try and figure it out. Or if you have completed and you just want to check if your answers are correct. So we have our list of transactions and we have our blank journal page. So one of the very first things that we do first is we title our cash receipts journal. And we do that quite similar to what we did with our petty cash books. We start off with the title of the company or the name of the company. Our second line is going to be what the journal is called. And our third line is the date range. Now, if you remember our instructions on the top of page 101, say that it is for September of this year. Once you have completed titling the journal, you can then go across each column and type in the headings. So the headings are going to be the same as the journal that you see in your book, which are date, transaction, folio, total, GST, cash sales, debtors, rent, and interest. Okay, let's have a look at our first transaction. So our first transaction was for the first of the month, and we received $250 from Pete's Printing for rent by AP. So when you look at your transaction, here is who it is received from, and here is the total. Because we were given an actual business name, we use the business name instead of using rent. If we weren't given a business name and it just said received $250 for rent by AP, then in transaction we would write rent. But because we have a business name, we write the business name instead. So we go to our journal, we type the date, 1st of September. In transaction, we put Pete's Printing. And in folio, remember we put AP because it was received through an automatic payment. And the total, if you can remember, was $250. So Pete's Printing, the transaction is rent. So we need to do a calculation to work out what that GST amount is. So to work it out, we need to do a GST calculation. So $250 times 3, which is 750. We then take that number, 750, and we divide it by 23, which gives us 32.608. Now remember, rounding is extremely important when you're recording in your journals. So if you can remember, The third number will change the second number if it is 5 or higher. So because this is higher than 5, as an 8, it would then change the 0 to a 1. So it would be $32.61. And this is what we would record into our GST. $32.61 GST. Our next step is to then deduct the GST from the total. So 250, take away $32.61 equals $217.39. Now this $217.39 is what you would then write into the rent here. So that is our first transaction completed. Received $250 from Pete's Printing. We've done that. Then we move on to the next one. So on the 2nd of the month, we had 3 transactions. One, we banked $530 in cash from cash sales. Now, whenever you see the word banked, that means a cash register summary. So that's going to be CRS. We also had one customer purchasing goods of $89.50 and paid by EFTPOS. And then we had another customer who purchased $15.60 and also paid by EFTPOS. So when you have a date that has more than one transaction, you can either leave one date here and write the 3 transactions, or you can write the date on all 3 of those lines. That is up to you. So remember that our first transaction is we banked $530.50 in cash from cash sales. So what we use here, cash sales and the total. So in transaction, cash sales, in folio, CRS, the total, $530.50. Now, because it's a cash sale, we have to calculate our GST. So $530.50 times 3 equals $151.50. Divide that number by 23 and you get $6.58. Remember your rounding, so that would change to $6.59. So I've just realized that I have made a mistake here. My calculator didn't pick up the extra 0, so that is not quite the answer. So $530.50 times 3 is actually $1,591.50. Dividing that by 23 gives you $69.195. So that's because the 5 is there, and the third number we need to change these. So that becomes 69. $20 in GST. So now we take $530.50 and we subtract $69.20, and what we are left with is $461.30, and that gets written into cash sales. Right, so our next transaction is one customer purchased $89.50 of goods and paid by FPOS. So it's a cash sale, because remember, an FPOS transaction is one transaction only. $89.50. Work out the GST. So work out the GST. This one, it's $11.67. And $89.50 subtract $11.67 equals $77.83. Third transaction for that date is another customer purchased $15.60 worth of goods and also paid by FPOS. So again, the cash sale, FPOS, the total amount $60, work out the GST. For this one, it's $2.03, and $15.60 minus $2.03 equals $13.57. On the 5th of September, we received a cheque in the mail from Kitchen and Bathroom Supplies Limited in payment of their account of $3,298.50. We issued a receipt, which was number 690. So the details that we use for this one, again, we know that we've received a cheque. And remember, for every cheque that we receive at BMC, we give a receipt. So here is who it is from. Here is the total. And here is the folio. So to complete this, we put in the date, which is the 5th of September. We use kitchen and bathroom supplies, because this is who we received the cheque from. The folio is the number of the receipt that we issued, which is 690. And the total was $3,298.50. Now, Kitchen and Bathroom Supplies sent us a cheque and a payment of their account. So we know that they are a customer, an on-account customer. We don't need to calculate GST. So we just use 00 in the GST column. And we go across to debtors and we transfer this amount to here. So 3,298.50. So I have now shown you the first 5 transactions that you need to complete for your cash receipts journal. These are each separate in transaction, or each different transaction that you will need to enter into the cash receipts journal. Complete the rest of the journal by entering in the rest of these transactions. And remember that if you get stuck, you can come back to page 97 and look at each different type of transaction and the steps to how it is recorded into the journal. Also remember that on the Moodle page are the answers for it as well. So now it's your turn. Have a go at completing the rest of the transactions on page 101. When you have finished your journal, you can look at the answers to check it, or you can submit it to the Padlet that will be at the bottom of the page. Good luck.